What's up, everybody? It's Mike. We're back here on the Pitch Please podcast. And today we are going to be talking to Tim about not the app that helps you get into a relationship, but about how technology and an application are going to help you stay in a happy relationship. I added happy there. I don't know if that's in your punchline too, but it feels necessary. And I'm looking forward to learning. Well, with that, I'm going to get you to talk a little bit, Tim. Let us learn a little bit about you, and then let's talk about your journey and about Couply. Let's get rolling.
Amazing, Mike. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to get into the conversation today.
So maybe let's start with like where you started. We'll talk about Couply more than enough today, but I'm always curious about the background of my guests because I find oftentimes that is what led them into where they are and what they've built. But where did you start out your career or your life journey? Were you an entrepreneur from birth? What does that look like?
For me, things began, I think, when I was working at the Red Cross. I was working at the Red Cross, and working in charity is a great place to practice being an entrepreneur. It's very interesting. You start working in the charity space really because of passions. And then the longer that you're in it, all roads kind of start leading to fundraising. We did a successful program in the UK. They wanted me to go and talk to some fundraisers about it. I remember meeting up with the fundraiser. We went and drove to see some rich people in England. Think country house, long drive, Saltburn style. I went, did a presentation on this project that we'd done, and then sort of went and sat in a different room while the fundraiser spoke to this person. A major gift was given to the Red Cross after that. And I thought, gosh, that's interesting. As my career continued in the Red Cross, it moved more into the fundraising area. And here's some things I discovered. I was going for lunches and doing major gifts. And I was speaking to these entrepreneurs that had already made such a huge difference. And I was speaking to this one guy. He had invented a technology that helped coat pipes for oil. He was in his mid 60s, really focused on athletics and fixing up his car. And he said, look, like, well, how much do you need for this thing? He's like, is 50K good, or do you need more? And I said, well, we're seeking a 150K would be like the total. And he's like, okay, cool. Let's just do that then. I'll do it all, and then you can get focused and go and raise money on other things. And I asked him, like, when did you build this company? And he's like, how old are you? And at that time I was 29. He said, yeah, I was your age. And it just struck me at that point. Holy shit, what the fuck am I doing? I should be speaking, instead of speaking to these people that have done all of these things, I should be doing it myself. And I really didn't know what to do. But I had a passion, and my passion was creative writing. And I
Okay.
was sharing my novel at that time on a platform called Wattpad. And I'd just been put into something called the Wattpad Stars, which is sort of like their author influencers. So I have a creative writing passion. I'm an author. I've hit 800,000 reads on this book of mine. And Wattpad were inviting me to see their office. When I go and see this office, this is all happening around the same time. I go and see their office. It is like Google for writers, Disney just for writers. And I knew at that point that this was something that I wanted to work for. This is a startup, a company that I really
Yeah,
wanted to
because
invest in.
they're still, I mean, technically a startup, a much bigger and more established one. But based on the timelines you're saying, they would have been a startup at that time.
They were still a startup at that time. I started throwing my hat in the ring for jobs. Started to just reach out to more people there, try and ingratiate myself into that company, and eventually I got a shot. I had to go from a director level of fundraising all the way down to cold calls to make a transition into tech, but it worked. And within 6 years, I was director of brand partnerships for Wattpad for US, Canada, UK. Incredible journey. A 6 year journey at Wattpad changed my life completely. While I was working at Wattpad, here are some things that happened.
Yeah, because I definitely want to hear this because you basically are like, I'm a creative writer. I started creative writing. I had a whole bunch of traction through Wattpad, but then I also wanted to work at
Yeah.
Wattpad and I wanted to be in a
Yeah.
startup because I just met this other guy that started his business at 29. And then I
Mm-hmm.
got into Wattpad and I grew. So
Yes.
now I'm curious. Like, it feels like you got exactly almost where you wanted to go.
Absolutely. It was incredible. And being on that ride, being on a ship that has product market fit, it is such an incredible experience. And being with Wattpad on that journey to Wattpad getting acquired was the most incredible journey. At that time as well, some things are happening in my personal life. I was in a long term relationship. I was married for 3 years and that ended in divorce. And I'm negotiating these personal things. So while my professional life is taking off, Wattpad's taking off, I'm getting promotion after promotion, everything is great. My personal life is like on the inverse. And when I started using dating apps, so fast forward, I'm divorced, I'm single, took 6 months to just kind of work on myself, aka hit the gym. And then I'm using dating apps for the first time ever because I've never encountered this problem. I've been in a relationship, right? And now I'm getting to experience what technology has done for dating. And coming from my generation, we had to go and walk to someone in person. The dating apps are freaking amazing. I know a lot of people, I know they get a lot of hate and all of this kind of thing, but trust me, if you miss this, if you missed that approach where you're walking with a beer and you're walking up to a group of girls to go and say hi and try and get them to talk to you and your buddies, you do not miss it. Dating apps are way, 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 way better than getting shot down in public, crawling back to your friends with your tail in between your legs. And I was very impressed with the way that dating apps had solved this problem. I thought it was amazing, but it made me think, where was the app to help me when me and my partner were having problems? My ex was a very smart person. She was a lawyer. I was working in tech. We both have master's degrees. We're good communicators. We should have been able to have productive conversations and figure things out, but we couldn't. It was beyond us. We ended up getting divorced. That idea struck me really hard. And as I use the dating apps to find my person, thank you, Plenty of Fish, I realized like maybe this idea has some potential. I started looking to see if there was maybe an app that could help us get on the same page. I'd read some really great books in this sort of growth phase, and it shocked me that there wasn't anything that was bringing this to life. And that's when the idea for Couply was born.
That's really interesting. What stood out to you? I want to talk about, like, because there's obviously a moment of you went through something, but it
Mm.
was a little bit after that moment that you were then like extremely excited about the new approach to dating. And then you sort of reflected back to what you'd just gone through. I mean, like, but there still seems to be a gap here. What was it that stood out? And I've never used a dating app, so I'm like, I'm married, happily married, been married for a while, been dating the same person who I'm married to now since like 2011. So like it was
Yeah.
just before the cusp of dating apps. So I've never used one. So I'm curious, like, what stood out to you as someone that's had the A and B experience that sort of like came and maybe is making its way into Couply.
I think just what impressed me so much was how well they solved the problem. You can be on a dating app, and I guess maybe it's the intention you're coming to it with. I didn't grow up with them, so maybe it was this just so different. I didn't such a different experience. But basically, you can meet someone, they look interesting, maybe they've got some interesting things on their bio, and with a swipe and a few messages, you can be sitting across and having a cup of tea with that person, having a cocktail, and getting to meet them and seeing what they're like. And most people I met were very lovely. It was a wonderful experience. 10 out of 10. I really felt shocked and surprised at how well dating apps solved that problem.
And then in that same moment, you were shocked and surprised that there wasn't something that felt this easy to work through the challenges that you had just gone through, that
Here's
it
the thing
ended in
is that
divorce and maybe it didn't have to.
exactly 43% of marriages end in divorce, but 65% of second marriages end in divorce. And I really didn't want to be part of that statistic. And when I started to look at that and think about that, I thought, okay, what is the way that I can guarantee that I don't end up in that statistic? I knew from the books that I read that there are behaviors that you can do that are pretty much going to guarantee that your relationship is going to work. There has been a ton of relationship science all around this. And it's in books, which is great. But when you go through a practice using a product or a therapist, it's really, really, really powerful. But you might not be at the point where you want to go to a couples therapist. And if that's the case, but you do want to guarantee your relationship is going to work. You do want to have the best practices to build the best relationship that you can. That is exactly the void that Couply fills.
Interesting. So maybe, and we'll really dive into the meat
Yeah,
of exactly what Couply is, but talk to me about this space a little bit. So, you noticed that there was a gap,
yeah,
and you mentioned therapist. Maybe that's all there is. But
yeah.
what did you discover in your exploration of, is there a better way to equally make sure that once you're matched with someone, that you stay matched with them and you work through um, that experience?
When you first start out a relationship, everyone talks about the new relationship energy, right? New relationship energy. This is a thing. This is when your hormones are maxed up. This is when all of your neurons are firing. You're a light. It's very similar to being on drugs. And you and your partner feel so connected. And there's some really powerful evolutionary stuff. This is designed to get you to leave the cave with a complete stranger, leave your family, and go and build a hut somewhere else in the woods and immediately start knocking out babies and procreating. It is so powerful. But we live in a society now where we have repeat monogamy over and over again. And so we are now outlasting this first period big time. But people are so shocked when their hormones start to come back down to normal. It takes between 6 months, 2 years. Honeymoon phase is over, hormones fade, neurotransmitters fade, and then we have to start working on our relationship. So this is where we start to see a gap. This is when people start to discover things about their partner that might not be things that they like. They start to discover things about themselves where they're not maybe being as responsive to their partner before. They're not doing the bids of connection that their partner asked for. Their attachment styles are starting to show up. And this is when the cracks in relationships begin to happen. There's a few more periods in your life as well, or seasons, where you're more likely to get divorced and break up. But this is the first one where we start to come in and,
So
and
first
start to
season,
help.
somewhere between the 6 month to three
Mm,
years in a relationship,
yeah,
is
yeah,
is a
that's
moment
exactly
where,
it.
whether people realize it or not, is that like a thing? Is that like, hey, so because you have a
S-
podcast too, right? Actually, let's talk about what that is, because I want to
Yeah.
tie it into all this. But you have a podcast as well, right?
Yep. Yeah, we have. I host the Couply Relationship Advice podcast, where we speak to leading relationship experts from all around the world. Mike, it's been amazing. Honestly, it's been such a treat to to spend so much time with leaders in the couples and relationship industry, and especially to get so much of their learning. And I think half of my um, guests have PhDs, so they're really, really deep in the space, and it's been amazing to get to connect with them and interview them.
That's super cool. We'll link that, but tying that back into here now, you said the 6 months to 3 years is when
Mm,
the hormones and the energies, the light bulb starts to dim. um, Through the podcast, or maybe some of your research, did you find that that is either like a very overt known moment, or it sometimes gets like buried, and that's where you equally fit in, as like, because we talked a little bit, and we're going to talk a bit more about this, like app versus therapist. And a
hmm.
therapist is like, ooh, like it's broken and I need additional
Yeah,
intervention. But
yeah.
I think what you're saying is maybe somewhere before that, there's a moment where you maybe haven't even fully realized it, or you're like bottling it up, that you need to be thinking about these things, and that starts to be where you play in at the first moment, and we'll talk about the other moments as well.
Totally. Being in a relationship would be like boarding and building a ship with someone that you're going to spend the rest of your life on. And if you're going to do that and you're going to sail off into the seven seas, wouldn't you like to take a course on how to navigate the stars or how to survive on a boat? But instead, what we do is we get on this ship, we build it together pretty fast, we take off, and then once water starts coming aboard and then a storm hits, we go to a therapist and be like, hey, can you try and fix this half sunk boat that both of us really kind of want to get off, and we're sick of trying to bail water out the bottom? This is the difference. Like, this is definitely the analogy that I think really speaks to this. We got such a cool opportunity here to help people in that area.
So
um
then, yeah, like talk to me then a little bit about exactly what Couply is. So you saw this gap. We'll talk about where it fits against like a therapist, but you started
Mm.
to tackle this gap. And so what was your solution?
So for us, it really comes down to a few things. Number one, getting people to communicate better. People communicate the best when they deeply understand the person across from them. John Gottman has something called bids of connection, and it's got popular on TikTok with a great TikTok that says, "Look at this bird," and if you say to your partner, "Hey, look at this cool bird," the idea is that your partner is showing interest in the things that you're interested in. It's a bid for connection, and these are what are really important in relationships. You can respond to bids in a few different ways. You can respond to them positively, neutrally, or push back. And when you push back, this starts to degrade your relationship. If you think about that ship, this is the hole in the hull letting water in. What Couply does is we help you understand to see your partner's bids of connection through personality assessments. So here are the three things. Number one, daily questions. This helps you understand the stories of your partner's life. This helps you understand their map of existence and what they believe. And hey, like some of these questions are fun, some of them are deep, some of them are sexy. It helps couples communicate in a new way and gives you some interesting prompts to answer. I think we've all seen now the couples cards that you can have at dinner time, or some of these card games that have deep questions. We've got those in a product. That's the first thing. The second thing is personality assessments. I love these. I'm not sure if you've taken them, if you've heard of love languages, attachment styles, Myers Briggs, Enneagram, Ocean. There are some really incredible things about your personality that you might not have even discovered yet, and you might not know about your partner. So we bring those two things together. And then this is where it gets cool, is that Couply can then give you customized relationship advice and date ideas that are based on your partner's personality. So the thing that your partner actually wants and desires. So you can understand the way that your partner's going to communicate when they're stressed or when they're at peace. You can understand some of the reactions that you might be having. If it's an attachment thing, if you have an anxious and avoidant dynamic, you're going to be able to understand so much more about the dynamics of your relationship. It is not a replacement for couples therapy, but it might mean that you won't ever need to go.
Interesting. But it supersedes the card idea or the date idea because you're actually contextualizing it. Because you're understanding not just one person, both people, and then you're helping figure out the common ground or the ways to connect them better through your app, which is really cool. And so, talk about that bit you said there, where you said doesn't replace couples therapy, but
Hmm.
hopefully helps you never have to use that. Who's your like ideal customer profile? Is it before the waves, let's keep down the ship analogy, but before the waves ever start crossing
Hmm.
over the bow of my ship or breaching through the hull? And is this a proactive thing that you do? Like, would it feel weird to use Couply proactively, or is it when you feel like something's missing, let's use this as a first step?
We got we got three people that use our app. Three types of people. We got new relationship energy people that are serious. They want their relationship to work. I think typically they've been through they've had a more serious relationship and it hasn't worked out. They might have a little bit of damage from that relationship and they think, you know what? This next relationship, I'm going to do it consciously. I'm going to think about it very carefully. I'm going to go through this in a structured way. And so Couply can help people go through those relationships in a structured way. I think the second one is a relationship that has stakes. And so this is a relationship where people have kids or shared assets. They have a house, an apartment, a flat, a dog, and they've just got assets. They're not in their early 20s where if things don't work out, who cares? They have assets and stakes connected to their relationship. These users tend to be between the ages of 30 to 45. Um, and then the final bucket would be people that maybe have gone through a real rough patch, maybe experienced infidelity, and are almost starting afresh, and they're making a fresh start, and they're using Couply to start again in their relationship. Very, very interesting, very different profiles here, but these are our three main groups of users.
Interesting. And so I guess both people need to use it. Talk to us about how Coupley works. So you talked about the components, you talked about the key
Yeah,
people that would use it. You shared a little bit about where and how that's definitely different than traditional couples therapy, and maybe we'll even dive into that more. But
yeah,
how does the actual app start to work? Both people need to download it. It's on your phone. Talk
yeah.
me through a
Both,
day or a week or a year. I don't know how often that this is
yeah.
used. So
Yeah, both you and your partner would download Couply and link up with the app. So the app is then a private space for you and your partner. Each day you get a new question to answer. So you'll get 7 questions each week, 3 quizzes, and then some kind of fun couples games to sort of test and see who knows each other best. Each week, you're taken through a new aspect of relationship science. First week, love languages. Second week, attachment styles. Third week, your language of desire, how you can spice things up in the bedroom. Fourth week, your Myers Briggs. Fifth week, Dr. Taylor Hartman's color wheel, which is amazing. Your Enneagram, your communication style, your conflict style. Each week over week, if you're doing Coupley, you're pretty much getting some pretty high level expertise in you and your partner's personality. Along with those weeks, we'll have questions as well, like I've said, that you and your partner can answer. Every Tuesday, you get a date idea that's customized to your relationship. And with the new feature that we're building as well, we'll have 24/7 relationship advice and date ideas available as well.
and so is it a linear journey? Like as you were describing it, is this something you use for a year because it's linear and then you'll have done, hey, I've used Couply as much as I can, or is it sort of like it keeps spicing up what it throws at you so that it
Yeah,
and brings back things after a period of time so that they come back and you're not forgetting things, because I imagine like repetition is important. Otherwise you like try it, do it once, forget, and so there's
exactly.
repetition on it. How does that work?
Exactly. So for our content, what we have is continual new courses coming into the Couplyverse. So for example, we just had Christmas, a bunch of Christmas content was in. Now we're going up for Valentine's Day. Our Valentine's Day courses are coming in. And some of these are a little bit more light. It really just sparks the conversation. I don't think what kind of Christmas person you are is might not have as larger impact on your long-term relationship and your attachment styles, but it still sparks the conversation around expectations, around why you are or aren't a Christmas person. And we have a whole bunch of these around different topics. We have 100 in the app, an additional 100 to put into the app. And I was speaking to a user the other day, and she said, "Oh, like me and my husband hike all the time, so I really enjoyed doing your hiking course." And what I couldn't believe is it brought up a new story for us, which was around why I actually like hiking. And it was because this is something that I used to do with my dad all the time before he passed away. And it was a whole big story that I'd never even shared with my husband before. So it's just helping uncover these stories that make up our past.
That's super cool. What happens if I'm just going through this in my head and I'm like, we're talking about like, oh, why did you start hiking? What happens if there's a question where you're like, someone does maybe they forget, like, when you forget to do your Duolingo for a day and it gets mad at you. But like, what happens if someone doesn't answer the question or just doesn't feel comfortable answering the question because they're
Yeah.
like, obviously gets deeper, but it's like, if you're afraid to answer that question, or shaping how you answer that question, knowing it gets back to the other person. But like, what happens in those scenarios?
You can we send a few reminders to get people to do it. Um, if you don't want to answer a question, you can just skip it. However, most of the questions are pretty friendly. There's not too many gotchas. They're really more supportive and around building that narrative together, I think. Um, there's some products that we've tested where they have really quite scary questions that you think, oh, that's a bit of a tricky one. Either way, answering this could get you in a bit of hot water. We deliberately tried to move away from that kind of content and have things that are more building up that story together.
That makes sense. So how long would the average user use Couply? Is this like an indefinite thing? Like you subscribe to it like a gym membership because it's part of your health, like your relationship health? Or is it like a periodic thing? Do you pay monthly? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have two options. So we're a freemium app to premium subscription. So you have yearly, monthly. You can still use Couply for free and get a ton out of it. If you love it and you want to unlock everything and squeeze the most juice, then that's when you can upgrade. And we see our users staying with us for years. We've seen them staying with us for years. I've got to know a bunch of our users. They've become friends and they test our new features, which has been awesome. I think what's the way that they think about it is they think, look, it's very, very similar to investing. You invest in your relationship, you invest in your stocks and shares, and the more that you invest, the greater the payout will be. You wouldn't leave something untouched that was important to you, so I continue to invest in my relationship. That's really how our users have thought about it. So yeah, people stay on it. I'd say the first year is when people do the most, and then the second year people stay in touch, and then year three we've seen people come back and redo everything again.
Interesting, because I saw the value definitely in the first run. So now years and years, how long has Couply been live and how many people are using this? It sounds like it's
Yeah.
quite large.
Yeah, we have been our earliest and most terrible MVP came out in 2019.
Okay,
And that was when we were really really testing it. We took a year to just continue test and revise, and we launched at Collision in 2021. And we won Collision pitch, which was incredible for us.
congrats.
And then so I'd say 2021 is our true launch. We went full time in 2022. So this is our third birthday, um, coming up on Valentine's Day. That's when we
Is that was
that's
sort of like your launch moment? That's sort of the date you use.
exactly
That's
exactly.
cool. So how many people? Is it downloads you track or active users? Where how big is Couply so far?
For now, we're still tracking downloads. We've
Okay.
had over 400,000 people download
Wow.
Couply
Wow.
across 137 different countries. It's only available in English for now, but it's really cool to think about the impact that we had on those people around the world, especially given that we're so early in our journey still.
Before we move on, I want to talk about you brought up the collision and that you won the pitch competition. I want to talk about that for a second. Like what was that like? What was the pit being a participant in the pitch competition like? What do you feel helped you win it? Was it just like the logicalness of what you're building? Was there something that, you got as advice that really got you to the front of the line in terms of winning that pitch competition?
The experience was absolutely incredible. Being part of Collision, absolute highlight moment in my life. Amazing. Um, I think what got us to win, the judges just really liked the idea. You'd be surprised how many people that are very high net worth individuals really struggle with their relationships. The reason for that is because so many things that make you successful in business, if applied directly one to one to your relationships, won't necessarily work. In fact, they're more likely to backfire. And so I think that this idea just really resonated with them. And at that point, they hadn't really seen anything like it. Very, very, very cool experience.
Yeah, it was like a punch in the gut. Like you were speaking, how they're always like, imagine you paint the imagined scenario, and oftentimes you're painting the imagined scenario that they aren't in. But I guess in some regards, you painted a scenario that they're like, oh shit, I see it. This makes sense, and it sounds like it could work. And I love the approach. At that stage, had you launched?
Yeah, we just relaunched. So I
Okay,
think we were on our
yeah, because
third
you were saying you did
relaunch.
MVP and you launched
Oh,
at Collision, so this is like a bit of
yeah.
a relaunch moment.
Yes, it was a relaunch moment. And it gave us this sort of deadline that we had to get all our new designs done, and we wanted to get a bunch of new content in the app so that as we spoke to people, and our goal at Collision was to try and get 200 people to download it. we were just going to network and talk to everyone. And we just wanted that early user testing. And because this was our first time ever paying for a conference ourselves out of our own money, we were like, okay, we're going to go and do every single thing at this conference because we're paying for it out of our
Yeah,
own
it's not
dime.
cheap. It's not a cheap conference to attend. A lot of value, a lot of cool people there, but it's not cheap, especially if you're paying for it out of Couply's money, which is just coming out of MVP.
Yeah, which is just coming out of our personal pockets. But it was great. Absolutely incredible experience. Definitely recommend folks to go.
So, 400,000 downloads is a lot. It's cool that it's available in all those countries already. You mentioned a bit around language. Um, can you tell me a little bit or talk to us a little bit about anything cool related to the next year ahead, your roadmap,
Yeah.
things people can expect to see coming out of Couply over the next year?
I think for us, our real focus over this next year is growth. We have started just in the last month partnering with some leading relationship experts. We're going platform by platform by platform. So we started on TikTok. So we have some of the largest relationship experts on TikTok being partnered with Coupley, or in talks with us. Dr. Tara being a leading one. She has 2.1 million followers on TikTok. Brittany Osdorf is another. She has the Laughing Couple podcast, 1 million followers on TikTok. And Mac and Murphy, absolutely incredible evolutionary psychologist, reached 160,000 followers on TikTok, I think, in 8 months, which is
Wow.
awesome. And partnering with creators, bringing them into your app ecosystem, but really truly partnering with them. I speak to these guys all of the time. They have so many amazing insights. Creators just understand people, they understand people's problems, they're speaking to their users constantly, every day almost. And they've got brilliant ideas. They are go-getters. I've been so grateful for the massive upswing in energy that working with these people has brought us. And as they start to speak about Coupley, they've also begun to open some pretty wonderful doors for us. So, for example, next week, Mackin and I are going to LA and Austin. Mackin has an appearance on the Lewis Howes podcast. We're hosting a Coupley dinner in LA. Then we're heading to Austin to go on Chris Williams' Modern Wisdom podcast, hosting a dinner in Austin. And these Coupley dinners also just bring together other relationship experts in more intimate ways. It really helps us get into the real zeitgeist of things that are happening. And it's really exciting. So I think for us, it's growth, it's real life events, and building our brand. That's what I'm truly excited about. That's on like the growth side. The second thing I'm excited about is Coupley AI. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Oh my goodness. We've been working on this for a while. We've got all of this incredible data, all of this personality data. And now we can use this and leverage this to give awesome advice based on you and your partner's love languages, attachment styles, live 24/7 through our new Coupley AI, which hopefully by the time this podcast is out will be launched. It's our first version, but I'm really hopeful. I've been talking
That's
to her now for a week and she's awesome.
that's super cool. So this is a capability that if you are a subscriber to Couply, it is an incremental tier. It sounds like.
No, free,
Oh,
free. It's going to
wow.
begin as free until we've really nailed it.
So everybody, run when you see this podcast go live.
Yeah,
Hopefully, it's
yeah,
already live. It'll be in the description. Go try it out. But this is like
yeah.
a personal assistant. So you've got the app obviously links you with information that is exchanged with your partner. But this is almost like your self therapist. Is that sort of the concept, like built within the app?
Exactly. It's your personal relationship therapist slash assistant in your pocket 24/7.
And is
What is
it
something
connected with the
it's
things that are
connected?
coming
It's
through the app? So like, hey,
exactly.
this is how I feel about the response I just read. Why am I triggered? Or what does it mean that I feel this way? That type of granularity?
Exactly. I just had an argument with my girlfriend. What happened? She complained that I didn't load the dishwasher properly. Right. The reason that she's complaining about that is because her love language is acts of service. You know that that's very important to her. I can also see on her personality profile that she's very, very detail driven, organized, and these are two of her big things that are important to her. So when she does things, she does them properly, she does them detail focused. I can see that you're much more creative and your love language is words of affirmation. So you're probably chatting away and not thinking about it, thinking up fun ideas of things to do. Don't worry, this is why this argument is happening with you guys. Here are some steps that you can do. These are the sort of responses that it's been giving us.
That is super friggin' cool.
It's wild. It's so wild, Mike. Sorry, I cut you off. I want to hear what
No, no, no,
you're
no. Go.
thinking.
Like it is good. These podcasts are about being chill and energy. So like it doesn't have to be Q&A. Whatever, man. Go. Jump in. You're in.
The moment I knew we had something with this was when I was testing it in WeWork. Shout out to the WeWork crew. That has been amazing as well as getting out and working a few days a week with a whole bunch of other founders. There's a group of 25 of us that work at WeWork, One University Toronto. It's the best. And I was sharing it, and it was in this really ugly code screen, yellow orange writing. We have an AI engineer from University of Waterloo who's doing his PhD in engineering. Shikhar, thank you. He was helping us build this. And then we had some of the crew start asking questions. And so we're pulling their data from what they have in their relationship. And I knew that we had something when one of the girls asked the question and she was like, oh my God, I need to remember this. And then she took out her phone and took a photo of the response that the AI said. That's when I was like, okay, this is exciting. We've got something here.
I love it. Well, let's talk about the cost because you talked about a
Yeah.
freemium model. We're talking about some
Yep.
badass features. How does it work? Do both people need to like subscribe?
No.
Walk us through the tiers if you can.
Yeah, there's only real one tier annual. It's 89.99 Canadian a year. 50% the cost of speaking to a couples therapist once. You get Couply for the year, and it's only one person in the couple that needs to buy, so you can treat your partner to a Couply subscription and have fun questions, conversation points, personality information, and date ideas for the year.
Now I'm almost wondering if we should be releasing this podcast before Valentine's Day so people have a gift to buy. But if we release this, I think we're going to try to do this on Valentine's Day. So maybe you're
Yeah.
listening right now and this is on Valentine's Day. If you
Yeah.
haven't gotten a gift yet, or if part of the day did not go as planned, you'll be able to go find your way to Couply, which sounds super important. Where should people go? If they're looking to, I guess you can sign up or download the app. Like, what's the sign up process, and where can people find out more?
Yep, it's on iOS and Android. Just search Couply in your favorite app store of choice.
Got it. And it's Couply. Just in
That's
case
it.
people are like, oh, is it like double I? It's actually like quite simple. It's just Couply.
Yeah.
And so that's a really easy one to find, thankfully. And we'll put in the description as well. You've had a really cool experience where you kind of lived out a bit of that dream working at the startup and then branching out to your own,
Mm.
either at A or B. What's sort of like some of the best advice you've received that's sort of impacted how you've crafted your journey and how you show up in the things you do at Couply?
I think it's something that I'm really working on. And it's this idea of conscious consistency. We have a lot of things that we do, a lot of completely unconsciously. And I'm really want to try and consciously be consistent at the things that are going to generate the most value and be the best for me and for my users and for the company. I think that's something that I'm really working on. I think in terms of advice, the best advice I've got was from Ivan Ewan, who's one of the co-founders of Wattpad. And he said product market fit doesn't come from the big things. It comes from the tiny tweaks. It's like the inverse of death of a thousand cuts. It comes from the constant iterations over and over and over again over a period of years that lead to true product market fit. It took Wattpad a long time to achieve that true product market fit. But that is something that has always I've always thought about, and it's really, he said, just try and find the 1% or 0.5%. If you can find that in each and every release, you're going to get there. You're going to get there.
So either this or the conscious focus piece that you talked about. Are there any tools that you've been using or any approaches that you use on either of those fronts, either to create super useful feedback cycles for the small 0.5%, 1% improvements, or for your own state of being around how you're consciously being deliberate with your time and energy and focus?
Yeah. So being close to the users is really important. We've always allowed our users to contact us directly very quickly through the app. My WhatsApp's in Couply. So that's been amazing for discovering bugs, for any just the myriad of things that show up. People can just WhatsApp me and I can get it solved very, very quickly and just talk to them human to human. There's no weird chatbot stuff. They can just get in contact with me or one of us very, very fast. That's awesome. I love that. Um, Organizing and structuring the team, we use Slack and Trello, and Canva now is starting to become more of a thing for us too. I'm really, really impressed with the way that Canva is growing. It's just such a cool product. So that's starting to become a little bit more of a thing that we all use. And then leveraging video has always been a big thing for me, but creating SOPs through Vidyard and Loom have been fantastic. So whenever you're taking someone through something, doing it on video, making sure they know how to do it, and then giving them the video so they can refer to that has been really, really helpful just for onboarding new people. We've been using a lot of student placements. So we've got partnerships with Arizona State University with the Family and Couples Counseling Department. And that has been really wonderful for us to build these relationships with these future therapists who are looking to do a placement as part of their course. And so onboarding those students and creating systems that allow that all to happen automatically has been really good. I think just focusing on our systems has helped a lot of this happen quite automatically, which has been super cool.
That's awesome. Your journey sounds like it was without bumps in the road, but
Oh, oh
oftentimes
God.
that's the just the nature of how we talk about it. But is there something that in either Wattpad or Couply, but I think Couply, like because you're living in it and you're the founder, that as a founder, um, is something that if looking back you would have done differently? On how you approach
Oh
things.
yeah.
You can't change the past, but if someone else is going on the journey, something that they should be eyes wide open to or paying attention to that maybe you missed the first time through.
Yeah, there's so many things, and if any aspiring entrepreneurs are listening to this and want to bounce some ideas or get some learnings, I'm always down to chat. I think the big thing for us is we should have got involved with the creators and folks in the zeitgeist of relationships way earlier, way earlier. Um, the doors that these guys are opening, the insights that they have are so powerful. And I think for any business that is consumer, creators are the future. I think a lot of our businesses are going to be creator plus a tech person, plus maybe a sort of MBA, McKinsey type person are going to be the dream founding teams of the future because they are the modern day alchemists that can spin nothing into gold. Just with a camera, they can create attention, build community. I have been amazed working with these guys, how hard they work, how focused they are. It's really inspiring, really, really inspiring.
What do you think was the hesitation? Because I like it sounds logical as you're saying it, but I can still see myself starting a company and being like, we're too small. They're going to be
Yeah.
like, wait until you've got users. And then
Yep.
maybe you do wait until you've got users, or I can't afford this. Like, what were
Yep.
some of the blockers and challenges? And like, what were some of them that were just assumptions, right? Or we're talking
But
about
it's
relationships and things
it
that like maybe you assumed that it like if you actually put your assumptions aside, you could have achieved differently. Where was that balance for you?
It's definitely around imposter syndrome. So it's definitely around like not feeling like you belong, not feeling like you've earned your stripes. I remember being terrified of the idea of really giving people any kind of relationship advice because I wasn't formally qualified, despite reading through the whole master's book list from doing a master's in marriage therapy. I still felt like I shouldn't be doing this. I was doing something wrong doing it. Whereas like you can learn so much about a topic within 6 months if you really put your head down, read the books, immerse yourself into the topic. You can start to hold your own and you understand the structure around it. You're going to know there's things that you don't know, but even just knowing the things that you don't know make you better than 99% of folks out there in terms of your knowledge. And that was the big that for me, I think, was the big holdup. And I definitely spoke to a great vision coach who we did a session with, just dealing with like what are the things underneath, what is stopping you, what is blocking you. And as I blurted these things out, I was shocked that I was even saying things like this, because I'm a confident person, but I still had to just give myself permission to go for it. So it's almost like giving yourself permission to just go for it.
That's cool. And maybe um, since you mentioned it, the vision coach, is that something that you think is like a helpful resource for founders? Because I think that there's a piece of confidence that you need to convey,
Yeah.
not Bitcoin confidence where you're like completely building a fake product. But to your point, you can't get kind of bogged down by imposter syndrome or self doubt, and so you need to come across at the right level of confidence and desire around what you're doing. Would you suggest that for others?
Oh, 100%. It's I like and find your person, find the person who's right for you. If it's a therapist, if you can organize it within a friendship group, but you're going to have stuff. We all have stuff in there. And because the founder journey is so public, the pressure's on, you've raised money, you've got your friends' money, you've got the people that you respect and admire the most in the industry, perhaps them, you're spending their money. You have this kind of weighing on you. And so just working with someone to bring that stuff up, very, 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 very powerful. And doing it in a conscious way, like you're not gonna really get it having beers with your mates. It'll scratch it, but just working with someone where this is all they do. This is all they do. All they do is find your blocks. They're going to work with you on it. You're going to pull it out. And for me, by the time I uttered it, it was it felt like this shadow that I had lingering underneath. And then when I pulled it up and pulled it out, it was like a minnow. And I was like, oh, that's what I've been worried about? Like, okay, I'm good. Let's set the camera up. Let's start making some relationship advice videos. It's gone.
I love it. Well, I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up for today, Tim. We'll make sure all the stuff's in the description. Couply, you can visit their website, but we'll have it in the show notes. Couply.io, really easy to find. I've learned a ton today. It's super cool what you're doing. It sounds like the TAM is massive, and you're going after it, and not sitting idle. You're releasing some really cool new features and capabilities, and being really aware of all the elements of how this business comes together and using some great tools in the process. So I've learned a ton. Thank you so much for coming on today. I hope our users are going to learn a whole bunch from your journey, or at a minimum, learn about how they can apply this to their current or future relationships. But thanks a bunch. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Any closing thoughts on your side, Tim, before we wrap up?
Appreciate you having me on. Thanks everyone for listening.
Have a good day.